Let's talk just a minute about ethical leadership and get into Accenture and everything that happened there. So it's a very complicated chain of events for me as an outsider, just reading what I was able to read about what happened. It started in '89, which was the year of the establishment of Andersen Consulting within Arthur Andersen firm.
No, that's an erroneous statement.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with that, because that's a core issue right there, what you just said. In 1989, an organization was formed called Andersen Worldwide.
Okay.
And under Andersen Worldwide was put Arthur Andersen Accounting and Andersen Consulting. They were two separate business entities entirely. Andersen Consulting, per se, was never part of Arthur Andersen. It was a sister company. Now, it came out of Arthur Andersen as it was known as the Administrative Services Division of Arthur Andersen. But when they formed Andersen Worldwide, two separate companies were formed, and the ownership of those two companies were divided between the partners between each. And that was a confusing point throughout the entire set of exercises. And the arbitrator, at the end of the day, clarified that very, very sharply, that there's ownership was split in '89. There was never any connection after that time. So it's an interesting long story. I was fortunate to be there in the sense that it was a phenomenal public relations and marketing challenge. But it came out of the marketplace driving people's actions in a way that it was unfortunate, because what happened was the consulting business was much more robust and profitable than the accounting business at the time. And the agreement had to do between the two companies with sharing earnings each year. And Andersen Consulting was paying Arthur Andersen $100 million a year because of its greater success. Well, Arthur Andersen, in violation, as the arbitrator found later on, of the contract between the companies, was reinvesting that money going back in the consulting business. And the basic agreement in '89 was consulting business was for Andersen Consulting, and auditing and tax was for Arthur Andersen, and there was no to be violation of that. And there was years of arguments about that, of debate, and are you violating the contract or whatever. And finally, in desperation, the management of Andersen Consulting filed an arbitration against Arthur Andersen and Andersen Worldwide. That was the only vehicle they had. They couldn't. The bylaws wouldn't allow litigation, only arbitration. And the arbitrator, 2.5 years later, ruled totally in favor of Andersen Consulting, said that both Andersen Worldwide and Arthur Andersen had violated the contract, and he dissolved the contract. And so there's no longer any connection between the two. Now, interesting enough, in the contract was the licensing agreement for the use of the word Andersen. That was owned by the Illinois Partnership of Arthur Andersen historically. And the contract, which was voided at Andersen Consulting's plea, essentially eliminated Andersen Consulting's ability to use the word. So we had 144 days to find a new name for Andersen Consulting. And working in 100 countries and trying to find a new name, working in global, is almost impossible. We had 5,000 candidate names, and 10 cleared all trademark clearances, et cetera, out of 5,000. Just 10. We could have used only 10. And we picked Accenture. It was an idea of one of our own consultants, and actually it's English is second language for the person. It's a Scandinavian who said, accent on the future, put them together. It was that simple. So that's where it comes from.